Let's be honest, modern medicine is broken. Patients are dismissed, doctors are exhausted, and mental health care is decades behind. So it's time to disrupt the status quo, to challenge a system that fragments care, dehumanizes patients, and burns out clinicians. I'm Dr. Georgine Nanos, and this is The Kind Revolution, a podcast about breaking old paradigms, rebuilding medicine with compassion and science, and reimagining what healthcare can be when we finally get it right. Because change is here, and it's starting with us. Welcome to the revolution. Welcome back, everyone, to the Kind Revolution podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, my longtime friend, Wendy Snyder. We've been friends for 30 years. She is a certified positive parenting educator and family life coach who's helped thousands of parents transform their families. Her goal is to make it easier for families to get solid, positive, effective parenting, education, and stay consistent in growing with our kids along each stage of their journey. And she's also way beyond a parenting coach. She's also a life coach, a professional encourager, accountability consultant, podcast show host, online course creator, business owner, and really the kind of person who always makes you feel seen, heard, and understood. Thank you so much, Wendy. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you, Georgine, for having me. It is an honor to be here, and I am so excited to chat all things parenting and my journey and our relationship through the years. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's start with your journey. Tell me about your early experience with parenthood, what that was like, and what kind of galvanized you to look for a fresh approach.
Yes. So it really does feel like such a full circle moment this year to be here with you right now for many reasons. But the first off is, so I kind of did a full flipperoo, so to speak, on my parenting when my daughter was 3. And I first started learning this world that I now teach in, firm and kind, connection-based parenting. For many years, I referred to it as positive parenting. Now I refer to it as powerful parenting. My new book that comes out in May is Fresh Start Your Family, Powerful Parenting to Restore Peace in Your Home, because it gives parents true power. And we'll talk about that. But I found this work 13 years ago, and it's just so fun because at the time you were helping us we were just new to parenthood. You were our kid's pediatrician and also a family friend, but you are a kid's pediatrician. So shit hit the fan, and I have my second kid. We're coming in the office. This is our second colicky baby. So we got 2 colicky babies in a row. I didn't know that could happen. Life was miserable the first 3 months with these children. And I would just come in the office and I'm like, Georgine, and I was so stressed out, and I was trying to make this like old school parenting system that I had inherited. Most of us inherit the autocratic system, right? Like that's just the way we all grew up.
Right.
If you're bad, if you mess up, you're going to get punished. You're going to get a timeout. You're going to get grounded. You're going to get lectured, scolded, shamed. It's just like the way you do it, right?
Right.
And so I had inherited this model. And at that point, I hadn't really learned a new way yet. So I was just so stressed out trying to make this little 3-year-old firecracker. I mean, she was born a firecracker. Thank God. Her strong will was just on full display from birth. But it wasn't until I had my second that I just really kind of hit rock bottom. And so I remember there was this day, and you probably remember this, where one of your staffers, I don't know what they said, but they said something like, dude, this chick, she is stressed out, and they must have said something like she's rude and I just remember being mortified because my memory serves me that you like called me and you were like, Wendy, look, okay, I feel you, mama. Like it's tough when the kids are little. I think you were just a few years ahead of me with yours, but you were like this is my memory, and our memory is funny. You were like, but mama, you've got to relax. You've got to chill out. And I remember I made cookies. I brought your staff like milk and cookies. And I just remember being like, I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening. And then it was like a few weeks later, thank God, I got invited to this positive parenting class at Stella's preschool. And my whole life changed once I started to realize what was happening, why I was so stressed out, trying to make this hand-me-down parenting tactics work, trying to control this uncontrollable firecracker human. And so here we are 15 years later. Stella is thriving. She's one of my best friends in the world. Our relationship is so good. I actually like her now. Back then I did not. Now I like, and she just secured, she'll be playing Division I beach volleyball in college at a top 10 school. And that is a feat that only 1% of high school athletes attain. So that
I'm so
strong
proud of
will.
her.
Thank God I learned not to break it. And so, but it's just funny because that was 15 years ago. And now she graduates high school in a few months. My first book comes out in a few months. And you were really at the core of the beginning of that. And somebody who had the courage to say to me, hey, I don't think you want to keep operating like this because you're a
I
freaking
remember
stress
telling
case. Do you remember that?
I do remember it. I do remember it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, my heart was breaking for you. I just saw how much you were struggling and none of it was working for you. So it was just a kind way to say, like, let's find a better way. And you did. And so that's amazing. So tell us about it.
Yeah.
Tell me about Fresh Start Family and what it is
Yeah.
and what it isn't.
Yeah. So yeah, all those years back, thank God I dropped into that class. I started learning these new strategies and essentially a few years later decided to become certified because it made such a difference in our family and just everything changed. Stella started to behave so much better. I started to see not only my daughter through a new lens, but the world and other people through a new lens. My marriage strengthened. Like the work just had such a profound impact on us that I knew I needed to teach it. That's when I founded Fresh Start Family, and I always had the mission. I wanted to like really preach it from the mountaintops. So like a family in a small town in Idaho could get the information online, or someone across the world in Bulgaria or Ireland. We have families in our program from all over the world now. And so that's when I created the online organization where we do education and coaching and support families all over the world. And now we have a podcast. It's called the Fresh Start Family Show. Terry, my husband, has been co-hosting with me for a few years. And it's kind of fun to bring the guy energy or the dad energy into that. And yeah, we love what we do. We got our first book coming out in May, and it's just been a real honor to be able to help others with the work that's changed my life. And that's everything I teach is not just theory. It's incredible firm and kind connection-based parenting. We always say it's the middle ground between too firm and too kind. And right in the middle is democratic firm and kind parenting. And so when you find that and when you get in the groove, it makes everything easier. Anxiety comes down, depression comes down. Kids naturally behave a lot better, not because they're forced, but because they feel like there's mutual respect in the home. We always say that kids in this work, once you understand how to implement these concepts, they listen and cooperate better because they want to, not because they have to.
Yeah, let's talk about the firm and kind model and the strategies. We're not given a kid's manual, user's manual when they're born. And a lot of us are, like you said, the behaviors that we grew up with, which aren't necessarily healthy at times. And so what tools can you share with our audience that can help parents through these difficult challenges at various stages, where everyone's got different stages they're all challenging. I tell parents, like in the beginning, it's like physical warfare, and as they age, it becomes psychological warfare.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. I'd say like the biggest, if we're talking from like a strategic front, the biggest thing is relationship just drives everything in the powerful parenting world. So in the autocratic or the authoritarian system, again, which is what most of us inherited, it's really about the power over. So it's like we expect as parents the child to do what we want because we said so and because we are the authority and because children respect authority no matter what. And so there ends up being like a lot of hypocrisy in the system, right? So a parent, often what happens is like they'll get really upset with a child because a child is very reactive, but the parent is very reactive. But because that parent has never learned that humility is a superpower, humility is a strength, they will deny, they'll defend, and they'll have blinders on. The strategies become very ineffective because they're still modeling what they don't want their child to do. So in the powerful parenting world, the key strategies would be humility, for sure, like being able to look at, am I modeling the behavior that I'm coming down on my kid for? And am I willing to get the support that I need to clean that up? And then empathy, like one of the core needs that we teach parents to understand about all human beings, but especially children, is children have a deep need to belong. There's a need to belong that drives human behavior, and there's a need to feel powerful. Those are kind of the biggest two that we see drive misbehavior or good behavior. And so when you have a kid that, maybe they're a button pusher like most strong-willed kids are, if they're constantly getting in trouble and finding their value and their belonging in that, they just keep going down that route. But if they find their belonging in being understood, if we give them messages that, like, I always like to say things like, you're not an alien, you make sense to me, no wonder why, I get it. And then we add and instead of but. So it brings in like the empathy, right? Of like, you make sense and we need to get this done, or we need to get in the car, or we do need to keep our hands to ourselves. So let's figure out a solution. Peaceful conflict resolution versus punishment. So we teach compassionate discipline. Those are like strategies that we replace traditional punishment with. So when they're little, that looks like teaching them how to self-manage and self-regulate with like things like break boxes and self-calming versus timeouts, or like yanking toys away, or the big thing for parents these days is technology. A lot of parents will just go to the one thing they know how to do, which is to yank technology, no matter what the kid has done. So we teach compassionate discipline, which relies on a toolkit that involves logical consequences, natural consequences, and then self-calming. So that's kind of a strategic replacement there. And then it's just what we would call firm kind authority. So you are very firm and you follow through with your boundaries, and you do it with connection, which is very different than what a lot of parents inherited, whereas you are firm AF, but you follow through with fear, intimidation, and usually humiliation.
Yeah, that's all very, very helpful. You have a strong-willed child. I have two strong-willed children. You've talked about raising strong-willed kids and cactus kids. So what are some practical techniques that, especially for or parents with teens, that they can use to dissolve these power struggles and kind of invite more collaboration for the teenagers?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of your listeners and community, is it accurate, Georgine, that you're working with a lot of clients who have teens now? Or do you still see patients and have listeners?
I see all ages. I see all ages. I have teens, so I feel like that's all that's my world.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I'll just throw out some key things. So the thing with strong-willed kids that we have to understand is their need to feel powerful is gigantic. It's gigantic. They are happy if they feel powerful. And I can relate. I have a feeling you have some strong-willed bones in your body too, right? Like we love to feel empowered. We love to have careers that are purpose-driven, and we love to use our voice. And we know that feeling. It feels really good. But for the kids who are in systems or homes where power is constantly kind of being like, if you think of it as a bucket, if it's constantly being tipped out, they will misbehave more. So it's kind of a backwards thought process. Because I remember when Stella was little, I would hear this concept and I'd be like, I don't think you understand. If you give this kid an inch, she'll take a mile. Like if you give this kid more power, she's going to become a dictator. But it was never true. These kids, when they are given more power in the home, they misbehave less out in the world. They demand it less out in the world. So some strategy examples are like when Stella was little, the idea of giving power came through with like definitely choices. We're still going to leave in 10 minutes, but I'm going to give you an option of like, do you want to run, like for little kids, do you want to run to the car like a cheetah, or do you want to hop like a bunny? Do you want me to carry you, or do you want to walk on your own? Do you want to grab the red or blue shoes? Like choices is like a very easy one. But another way of like empowerment is to like literally let them lead sometimes. So I remember Stella when she was little, there was a day where she wanted to sell rocks that her grandma had just come to town, and like they had gone mining and gotten these gems. Grandma probably paid like $30 for these gems. And Stella wanted to go out on Monday morning and sell them on the front porch. And I was like, my overpowering self came in. I was like, kid, no, we're not going to go. It was a drizzly day. We're not going to go sit out front, sell rocks. You're not going to sell anything. And those are your grandma. She just bought those for you. Like, we're not going to resell them. Wrong, bad, judgment, power over. And because I had been taking these classes by that point, I was like, okay, fine. I'm just going to let you lead. And I'm like, you know what? Wendy, relax. Get your book. Go out there. And I sat with her and she made a sign and she made her wagon. And I think she made $16 that morning. And there was grandmas walking by and neighbors that were so happy to give this little girl their money and support her little rock business while her baby brother just sat there and spit up on me, like she was just so filled up. And like, that was an example that feels like it's permeated into my brain. I remember her behavior for the rest of the day was just like heavenly. She was like, Stella, put on your shoes. Okay. You know, like they just love it. And then as they get older for teens, that looks like, I remember when we were in her recruiting journey. When you're an athlete and you're getting recruited, it's intense. And she always wanted to go to these top 10 schools. And we're like, kid, are you sure? Right? Like top 10, like it's like the top dog athletes. And she was always like the underdog a little bit. And so I remember being like, why don't you consider Florida, whatever. And she just kept pushing back. Like we could feel her resistance. And finally we had to be like, you know what, Stel, you're going to lead this entire thing. We are here to support you. You tell us, where do you want us to support you? We believe in your vision. We got you. Like if you only want to do these 5 schools, Cal Poly, Hawaii, Long Beach, and there might have been one other, and you're like a hell no to Florida, we will support you. But that few weeks when we were trying to pressure her or make her do something, they start to rise up and you'll see them, the behavior becomes questionable, the attitude flares up.
They start to dysregulate completely. It unravels.
Yeah, so that's just kind of like one example of like empowerment and, you know, pouring into like really letting your kids lead. For little kids, it can be like from very early on. If you're changing a baby's diaper, it can be like, hey, can you like dunk this into the genie, the diaper genie, like putting them in charge of throwing away the diaper and making it fun. Like we're just constantly looking for ways to empower these kids. And then the big other strategic thing I would say for kids of all ages, if they're strong-willed, or any child, but especially strong-willed kids, is to develop a discipline system that builds them up instead of like pushes them down. So one of the beliefs that we often say is like, where do we get the notion that in order to make children behave better, we must first make them feel worse? And it really is the cultural norm, right? Like most people think that a kid really needs to feel bad about what they've done. And in our line of work, discipline is just a teaching strategy. We come beside kids and we're like, you're not crazy. You made a mistake. Mistakes are just opportunities to learn. Guess what? That's what it looks like to be human. And of course, you'll be held responsible. Of course, I'm going to hold myself responsible if I've modeled this behavior at all. I'm going to clean myself up first. And then together, we'll learn a different way. I'll teach you through natural logical consequences and self-calming how to have self-regulation, how to get the support that you need instead of cheating on a test, how to like get your needs met without starting to vape and drink as a freshman in high school. That's like a big story I write about in my book. We just do it with compassionate discipline. And that creates the human that like doesn't hide, lie, defend, deny, and like hate you as a parent, because you're just coming beside them to hold them responsible and teach them important life lessons, but you're not doing it in like a humiliating way that creates distance. Because like every time you create distance between you, the misbehavior will go up and they'll just become better at denying it, defending it, and hiding it.
Right. Yeah. That is so incredibly powerful and true. And it is, I think, getting back to what you were saying, breaking those generational cycles that we, that was our default growing up. Yeah. One thing that you talk a lot about recently in the last year is raising emotionally safe kids in a kind of violent, chaotic world. And I see in my practice so many kids, teens, young adults with so much anxiety, and it's so distressing and sad to see this permeate through so many people's lives. I get, we're raising kids in this time of constant exposure to school shootings, war, political polarization, social media madness. So how do you think this changes the emotional landscape of childhood in general?
I love the work that you're doing to help the young adults, especially with like anxiety and depression, because it is at this point, and you're probably even the bigger expert than me on this, but it seems like it is a, would that be called epidemic? I get epidemic and pandemic confused, Georgine, but it's like...
No, it is. It is all of the above.
The rise of the depression and anxiety. If anyone's familiar with Jonathan Haidt's work, I had the honor of interviewing his partner on my podcast before, and also working with the woman that wrote the kids journal to the anxious generation. But his work and research has been really profound to help us as parents understand the impact that's happened since the invention of so much technology and iPhones and all the things. So there's kind of a lot going on with that question. And I would just say that A, there's a technology piece, which we can circle back to in a minute. But B, when you have like a connection-based, relationship-based parenting system, safety, you said that word safety, like feeling emotionally safe, like you're heard, you're understood, like you belong, that becomes very steady in this type of ecosystem. So when there's a lack of punishment, when there's a lack of shame statements. It took me 7 years to stop yelling. I've written articles that are really intense. One's called I Left Bruises. One's called The Night I Threw a Book at My Kid. Like, I've been very vulnerable and open with like how long it took me to heal my nervous system to do things a different way. But when you fully change your parenting system to one of connection, kids see the home as a haven, and they look to their parent as someone who's going to at least seek to understand them, instead of taking this power over autocratic position of like, you know, what we see a lot in teenage years is like parents will end up almost making fun of their kids nonstop. I think a lot of parents, like, they fear the teenage years. Cultural norms are like, teenagers suck, so we just can make jokes about them. But really, they don't. The teenage years can be so beautiful if you have a system where you are growing beside your children. And so I see that the parents who step into that have like a very enjoyable teenage years, even though it's rocky, right? Like, and we've had many times where behavior gets rocky, and to have the tools to work through it together creates that trust and safety and the emotional stability. The other part of that is the technology piece that we cannot deny. And so what we do here at Fresh Start Family is we just try to advocate for like to keep them off the social and the iPhones as long as humanly possible, because we see the data and the research supporting that protects the mental health. So, you know, everyone does the best that they can. And it's like a level 10 degree of difficulty now. I did do it to show people that you can do it, but to keep your kid off an iPhone and out of social media till high school is one that I'm seeing most parents cave on these days. And in my work, I see the direct correlation to the uptick in anxiety, irritation, frustration, and just overwhelm from a very young age. And then even if you do wait till high school, then once you do have kids in high school that are knee deep in the technology piece, we just advocate for parents and children, parents to view it as, we're in this together. We're not like, you get off your phone. Don't you know that thing gives you anxiety? It's like, no, together. Most people who have kids who are struggling with a lot of media, which I think puts them in a higher category for anxiety and depression, they also have parents who are struggling with the same thing. So we just remove the hypocrisy and we say, we are all working to manage our consumption. So we're giving our brains and our mental health the most chance possible to be healthy in this wild world we're living in. But we just know that like when consumption goes up, when addiction goes up, usually that's directly correlated to the depression and anxiety too. At least that's what I see in my world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. What's your philosophy on talking to kids about, I mean, you know, they've got the phones, they're in high school, or middle school, and they're seeing all this stuff like violence and hate-based events. That is a collective trauma that everybody's going through. I mean, you literally have videos of people dying, being shot, that they're seeing constantly. How do you tackle that, and what do you recommend to parents, and how to manage that?
It's a beast. Well, again, the middle schoolers, like, we know that they're going to see it somehow, right? But like at the same time, if you can just do your best to find your security and confidence being the outcast, it's one thing that you will never regret. So maybe they'll see the video like once or twice when a friend shows them, but they're not constantly having it in their feed because they're not on social media in middle school. They just get those extra 3 or 4 years to have the brain have that extra white space where they're not being exposed to the trauma stuff. And then, you know, it's like, as they get older, I think just the conversations are huge. And then just kids knowing that action really is one antidote to the overwhelm and anxiety that comes with having such visibility in the world. So just keeping the open communication. And I would say sometimes there's going to be parents who have different thoughts than their kids about things. And it's an opportunity to hear their true, honest perspective. Most of the time, a kid's perspective is going to replicate a parent's, but there's a lot of parents who are probably listening who have children who are holding different opinions about things. And so it is an opportunity to grow that muscle to say, what are your thoughts? How did this affect you? And not making them wrong if they say something, but instead, like that's a lot of our work is we learn to use what we would call feeling encouragers, listening intently, where we're saying less and we're listening more. So we're providing more white space for them just to dump stuff. And a lot of times you have to bite your tongue and you have to not react strongly. There's a really cool study. It was decades ago now, but Torrey Pines, a high school in the San Diego area, and they surveyed like 1,000 kids at Torrey Pines, and they said to them, who do you go to? Who do you want to go to when you have a problem? And almost all of them said, well, love to go to my parents. And then they asked again, who do you actually go to when you have a problem? And almost all of them said, anybody but my parents, because they'll either lecture me, try to fix it, stay up all night worrying, or they'll get mad at me. And so this day and age where we know children are seeing things, it's like, just to make it a safe space to like hear what your honest thoughts are. And then for us to stand in our ability to say, thanks for sharing that. Like, here's what my thoughts are. And here's what I felt inside, or here's what action step I'm taking because this did eat away at me. And I hate that we see it, but it's also, to me, it's very important that we know what's happening, because it's a blessing and a curse to know that like neighbors are getting harmed someplace else. That like, I'm thankful that we know that and we can see it with our own eyes, so we can use our voice to advocate for good. But you also have to help children. And I don't know the answer to that yet, but it is a wild new era that we're in for sure.
It is. And I think a lot of it too helps. I mean, it's so uncomfortable for so many adults, obviously, and that requires parents to really confront their own fears and biases and all their unresolved traumas too. So you get a whole storm of emotions there. Yeah, it's a tough time. What gives you hope? Do you have hope for this generation?
I do. I recently, I'm just coming back from like a really beautiful workshop where I got to sit in a room with like 250 and very conscious, amazing entrepreneurs and authors and coaches and people who are just doing great work in the world, and got to see some pretty incredible speakers speaking, including a humanitarian that I really admire. And she's 80. So to see her speak from a stage and see her reflect on 80 years here and what she thinks the next 25 years is going to bring was really beautiful. But I do think that this next generation is going to be part of, I think, honestly, the flipping of a lot of systems. I think the world is the exposure, so to speak, of like systems of power over have maybe worked for a while. But what I'm hearing from so many different colleagues and people I interview and like these very respectable people is that the systems are going to flip. And so I see the next generation of young children or young humans who refuse to allow hurt and harm and old systems keep going. Like, they are the ones that have the courage. They are being raised. There's enough of us raising our children who are the red flag raisers, so to speak, who are calling BS on these like very hypocritical power over harmful systems. And so I think that gives me hope to know that they're going to be part, if we can mentor them. And we always think of strong-willed kids as future leaders. So if we can really support these kids to lead in a respectful, high dignity, and also firm and kind way, to not shy away from their calling and their voice and their natural gifts, I really do have hope that in 30 years, the world will be sitting in a different place, and the structures and the systems at large will be ones that are more healthy and more inclusive and lead to more humans thriving on this planet. And I think it's going to be because of this generation that this flip is going to be facilitated, so to speak.
Well, that is a beautiful ray of hope.
We'll
That
see,
is
Georgine.
exciting.
We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Final thoughts. What else do you want to share that I haven't asked you? Well, I want you to tell me about your book first, and then we'll get to the
Thank you for
final
asking.
thoughts.
Yeah, I'm excited. What a journey to write a book. Yeah, I didn't know how this book was going to come out, but now that it's done, it's a fun, I think it's a mix of like a how-to, right? So when I say how to bring powerful parenting in your home to restore peace, there's a lot of how-to, there's a lot of strategy, but there's a lot of personal, vulnerable stories. And I hope that families are going to love that because you get to hear the nitty-gritty details of like my worst moments as a parent and how I learned to do it differently, how I made amends, how I repaired relationships, how I actually stopped yelling, how I, went from highly reacting to my kids when they were little and some of the moments where there's just real life examples of like, this is what it looked like. And these are the beliefs I used to have into now where we sit with a 15 and 18-year-old where we are just fully fluent with all the things that we teach. And it's, I hope that people are going to love that because I love to teach through story. And so how to is great, right? But without like actual examples, then it's a little bit hard. So when inside of our programs, we have like a lot of role plays where you would crack up. Terry's the best actor, right? I mean, surprise, surprise. He makes everyone laugh. He's so funny. But we show people like, here's what the old school tactic looks like, right? When you put a kid in timeout, when you ground them, whatever, this is usually what it looks like. Here's the feelings that happen afterwards in both yourself and your child. And then we redo it so they can see, okay, here's how this different strategy would look if you approached it in this way, looked at the core needs or beliefs and came at it from a different angle. And so I think that's one thing that's really fun about the book is that there's just so many personal real life stories that are all mine, all my children. And then, yeah, so, yep, I think that's it about the book. Yeah.
Well, that's great because I think that's what really resonates with people. They want to see that lived experience. They want to, get to understand it. It presents a very powerful message. And it also, I think, gives parents the ability to give themselves some grace and some self-compassion because, the parent guilt, man, it's real.
Yeah.
Like I feel guilty about every single thing I do. Did I do it right? I don't know.
And that is
sure.
a beautiful part. That's one of my favorite parts of this work is that that is great. So much of what I probably say it a million times in the book is realizing the difference between guilt and shame, right? So guilt is like, dang it, I wish I would have done that differently yesterday. And then when you are a parent that is like part of this conscious movement to like end painful generational cycles and do it differently, then you just get the support that you need to like do it different, right? Like you might hire a coach or come do something, with you and your staff or take a class or listen to a podcast or whatever, book a therapy appointment, but you take that guilt and you do something with it. So shame is a little bit different, right? Shame is like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
That's usually something we pass down to children, which we have the ability to break. But yeah, looking at those two things and just knowing that, man, we're all doing a great job. We're all just learning. It's just such a journey. It's such a journey. And
exactly.
Shame will keep you stuck. So the sooner you can work on releasing shame, letting those little hits of guilt motivate you to change, but making sure you're eradicating shame from your life, the sooner you're going to find the joy and the peace with your kids.
Yeah, good advice. Final thoughts. What else do you want the world to know?
Let's see. What else do I want the world to know? I think one of the main messages in this book is like that it's never too late to start fresh, right? Like I've had grandmas in my program, grandmas who come into our program and they're like, I'm a grandma. I don't know if it's okay to be here, but like, I just want to help my kids do it differently with their kids. So I'm here to learn. And so when I have my kids, so it really is never too late. If you've got teenagers, it's not too late. We ask so many people, full grown humans in our program, like if your parents were to come to you tomorrow and be like, you know what, I'm realizing like all those years, I never really took responsibility or I never learned what was happening with my nervous system, and now I am. Like, I want you to know I'm seeing a therapist now, and now I'm realizing all those years that I would yell or react, like, I'm starting to realize like what's happening, and I'm doing the work now. Most of us would be like, thank you. Like, don't worry, right? Like, so
Right.
even if you're knee deep and your kids are almost out of the house, like, it is never too late to start fresh, because you are going to have a relationship with your children for the rest of your life. And if you can just start learning some new ways to handle conflict, and when you're triggered and when you need to teach those important life lessons, it'll help you see yourself and the world in such a different light. And it's just always a good time to start fresh. Wipe the slate clean, Georgine.
I love it. That is great advice and a good note to end on. Tell us where our listeners can
thank
find
you.
everything about
Come
you.
pre-order the book. Pre-orders help authors so much. FreshStartFamilyOnline.com/pre-order. We have some really fun bonuses if you hop in and pre-order the book. It does release on May 19th, but we've got some really great things you can read about on the website.
Ooh.
And you can get it anywhere books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, if you're a small shop person, bookshop has it out. And then come find me on Instagram. I'm Fresh Start Wendy, and listen to our podcast, The Fresh Start Family Show. You can just Google that up. Those are all the places.
I love it. Thank you so much, Wendy. This has been such a pleasure. And thank you all for listening to the Kind Revolution
Thank you, Georgie.
podcast. And we'll see you all next time.
Thanks for joining the Kind Revolution. If this gave you something real, hope, perspective, or a fresh way to think about health, please share it, subscribe, and pass it on. Medicine won't change on its own, but together we can reimagine it and build something smarter, kinder, and create a system that truly heals. This is the Kind Revolution with Dr. Nanos, where science meets compassion and the future of medicine gets brighter one conversation at a time. Thanks for joining the revolution.